A 50 cal. Ma'am, are you sure you can even lift it? This isn't a toy for photo ops. The crowd of assembled sailors and officers, standing under the punishing glare of the Virginia sun, let out a ripple of nervous laughter. The sound was thin and sharp against the vast, open space of the Dam Neck firing range. The man who had spoken, a rear admiral draped in the crisp, starched white of his summer uniform, smiled a condescending, paternal smile. He was a man accustomed to the sound of his own voice echoing with authority, a man who saw the world through the rigid lens of expectation and tradition. And the woman before him fit none of his expectations. She stood silent, her gaze fixed not on him, but on the monstrous weapon system before her, the brand new M210 enhanced sniper rifle, codenamed Kraken. She was of average height, her frame lean and wiry under her simple navy coveralls, giving no hint of the power required to command such a weapon. Her dark hair was pulled back in a severe, regulation bun, and her face, devoid of expression, was a mask of pure, unadulterated focus. She did not flinch at his words. She did not acknowledge the laughter. Her hands, gloved and steady, simply continued their methodical pre-fire checklist, moving with an economy of motion that was almost hypnotic. But from the air-conditioned observation tower overlooking the range, Fleet Master Chief Thorne saw something else. He saw the subtle cant of her stance, a textbook marksman's brace that distributed weight with practiced perfection. He saw the custom wear pattern on the pistol grip of her sidearm, the kind that only comes from thousands of hours of repetitive drawstroke practice. He saw the quiet, absolute calm in her eyes, a calm he hadn't seen since a dusty rooftop in Fallujah 2 decades prior, in the eyes of a legendary operator from a unit whose name was only ever whispered. If you believe true strength is measured in results, not volume, type proven below. The Admiral, mistaking her silence for intimidation or perhaps incompetence, pressed his advantage. He strode forward, his polished shoes crunching on the fine gravel, positioning himself as the center of this impromptu lecture. "Look," he began, his voice booming with false sincerity. "I appreciate the Navy's commitment to diversity, I really do. It's important. But this is a serious piece of hardware. The Kraken fires a 50 caliber armor-piercing round with a muzzle velocity of nearly 3,000 feet per second. The recoil can dislocate a grown man's shoulder if he's not properly braced. We're here to demonstrate its advanced targeting capabilities to our allies, not to put on a show that ends in a medical evacuation." He gestured to the gallery of foreign military attaches who watched with polite, unreadable expressions. The humiliation was now a public spectacle, a deliberate power play designed to put this unassuming woman in her place. The onlookers shifted uncomfortably. The young ensigns, eager to curry favor, nodded in solemn agreement with the Admiral's assessment. The older, more seasoned non-commissioned officers, however, watched the woman. They saw no fear, no anger, no shame. They saw only a professional at work. Her fingers traced the seams of the rifle's receiver, her head tilted slightly as if listening to a secret language only she and the machine understood. Her breathing was slow and even, a measured cadence of calm in a sea of manufactured tension. She slid a massive, 5-round en-bloc clip into the magazine well. The sound, a heavy, metallic clack, was the only answer she offered. It was a sound that cut through the Admiral's pompous speech, a definitive, mechanical statement that the time for words was over. The stage was set, the injustice was palpable, and the silence of the protagonist was a coiled spring, ready to unleash a force that no one, least of all the arrogant Admiral, could possibly comprehend. The formal challenge began not with a bang, but with a sterile, computerized voice from the range speakers. Initiating tactical engagement simulation. Protocol, rapid onslaught. 20 hostile targets. Variable range, 800 to 2,500 meters. Standard for success, 12 impacts within 60 seconds. Commence on tone. A piercing beep echoed across the range. For a moment, nothing happened. The Admiral crossed his arms, a smug, "I told you so" look already forming on his face. Chief Petty Officer Anya Sharma did not move. She simply exhaled, a long, slow stream of air that seemed to carry with it every distraction, every insult, every ounce of pressure. Her eyes settled into the optic of the Kraken. The world beyond the scope narrowed to a single, crystalline plane of data, overlays, and distance markers. Her preparation was a silent symphony of minute adjustments. A fractional turn of a dial on the scope, a slight shift of her shoulder into the stock of the rifle. Her index finger rested lightly on the trigger, not touching, but sensing its weight, its break point, its soul. She was no longer a woman on a firing range. She was the calm center of a violent storm she was about to create. Then, the targets began to appear. Metal silhouettes popping up from behind earthen berms, moving laterally between concrete barriers, some partially obscured by simulated foliage. They were designed to overwhelm, to force panic, to break a shooter's rhythm. But Anya Sharma had no rhythm to break. She had only precision. The first shot was a deafening, concussive roar that slammed into the chest of everyone present. A shockwave of pure power ripped through the humid air. And 1,200 meters away, a steel target, painted to resemble an enemy combatant, vaporized from its mount. Before the sound of the first impact returned to the firing line, the second shot was already gone. The massive rifle bucked against her shoulder, but she moved with it, absorbing and redirecting the colossal energy as if she and the weapon were one organism. The heavy brass casing ejected in a perfect, glittering arc. A target at 1,800 meters, partially hidden behind a simulated wall, disappeared in a cloud of dust and metal fragments. The third shot followed. The fourth. The fifth. It was not firing. It was a percussive cadence, a brutal drumbeat of absolute destruction. A moving target at 800 meters, a difficult lead shot, was hit dead center. A pop-up at 2,100 meters, barely visible in the shimmering heat haze, was obliterated. The en-bloc clip was empty. In a single, fluid motion that was too fast to properly track, she ejected the empty clip, snatched a new one from her belt, and slammed it home. The motion took less than 2 seconds. 5 more shots rang out, each one a punctuation mark at the end of a steel target's existence. The crowd was no longer breathing. The Admiral's smug expression had melted away, replaced by a mask of slack-jawed disbelief. This wasn't marksmanship, it was a statistical impossibility. The final target appeared at the maximum range of 2,500 meters, a tiny sliver of a silhouette visible for only a 3-second window. It was the no-win target, the one the designers put in to guarantee no one ever scored perfectly. Anya's final exhale was almost imperceptible. The Kraken roared one last time. For a heart-stopping second, nothing happened. Then, a tiny pinprick of light flashed from the distant berm, and the electronic scoreboard, which had been struggling to keep up, flashed its final verdict. 2020 hits. Time, 287 seconds. New range record, a profound, absolute silence descended upon the range, broken only by the faint, metallic tinkle of the last shell casing as it bounced off the concrete. Impossible, the Admiral whispered, his voice a dry rasp. Check the system. That's not possible. Just as the Admiral began to bluster about a system malfunction, a calm, authoritative figure descended the steps from the observation tower. Fleet Master Chief Thorne moved with the unhurried confidence of a man who had seen everything, and he carried a standard-issue data tablet in his hand. He walked past the stunned Admiral without a glance, his eyes fixed on Chief Sharma, who was already clearing her weapon, her movements just as precise and methodical as they had been before she had shattered every record and assumption on the base. Thorne stopped a respectful 10 feet from her, his expression a mixture of awe and profound respect. He tapped the screen of his tablet a few times, then turned and presented it to the Admiral. The light from the screen illuminated the Admiral's pale, shocked face. The narrator's voice could have been reading the text aloud, a staccato litany of undeniable truth. Name, Sharma, Anya. Rank, Chief Petty Officer, a simple start, but the details that followed were anything but. Unit, Naval Special Warfare Development Group. Active duty, 14 years. Primary military occupational specialty, Special Operator, Master Sniper. The Admiral's eyes widened. DevGru, the unit that wasn't supposed to exist. The quiet professionals. The legends. The file scrolled on. Weapon qualifications, expert, all known U.S. and foreign small arms and heavy weapon systems. Combat deployments, 12. Locations, classified. Citations: Navy Cross, Silver Star with 2 oak leaf clusters, Bronze Star with V for Valor device, Purple Heart. The list of commendations was longer than the Admiral's own. Then came the final, devastating line. Special commendation note. Credited with the longest confirmed sniper engagement in Joint Special Operations Command history. Target neutralized at 3,142 meters. Codename assigned by Tier 1 elements. Ghost. The tablet fell from the Admiral's limp fingers, clattering onto the concrete. The sound was unnaturally loud in the continuing silence. Master Chief Thorne took a half-step forward, drew himself up to his full, imposing height, and faced Chief Sharma. In a move that broke every conceivable rule of naval protocol, the highest-ranking enlisted man in the fleet executed the sharpest, most impeccably formal salute the Admiral had ever witnessed. It was not a salute to a subordinate. It was a salute to a legend. Chief Sharma. Thorne's voice was gravelly, thick with emotion. An absolute honor to witness, ma'am, the use of ma'am. A term of respect reserved for officers, directed from a fleet master chief to a CPO, was the final, crushing blow to the Admiral's shattered worldview. Thorne then turned his gaze, now as cold and hard as forged steel, upon the Admiral and the assembled crowd. Admirals, he said, his voice low but carrying to every corner of the range, command fleets from bridges and boardrooms. Warriors like Chief Sharma win this nation's wars from mud-filled ditches and dusty rooftops. Assumptions are the currency of fools, and today, you saw them bankrupted. He pointed a rigid finger toward the distant, smoking targets. What you just witnessed was not a demonstration of a rifle. It was a masterclass in lethal precision, delivered by one of the finest marksmen this country has ever produced. Her file doesn't say female operator, it doesn't say small stature, it says lethal. I suggest you all remember that the silence that followed was different. It was no longer a silence of shock, but one of deep, humbling, and profound respect. The story of what happened on firing range spread through Naval Air Station Oceana like a wildfire in a dry canyon. It started with the whispers of the young ensigns who had been there, their voices now filled with a reverence that bordered on fear. It was carried by the gruff, knowing nods of the senior NCOs in the chow halls, who now looked at every quiet, unassuming sailor with a newfound sense of possibility. The foreign attaches sent encrypted cables back to their home countries, describing a weapons demonstration that had turned into a display of a near-supernatural human skill. The legend of Sharma's 20 was born. The firing position she had used was informally christened Ghost's Perch by the range masters. The digital recording of the event, though officially classified at the highest level, was rumored to have been duplicated and sent to the sniper schools at Fort Bragg and Dam Neck, where it was studied not as a training video, but as a piece of aspirational art, a glimpse at the absolute pinnacle of the craft. The tale became a modern military folktale, a powerful reminder that the deadliest threats often come in the most unexpected packages. The details grew with each telling. The wind was a gale. The targets were moving at impossible speeds. She had done it all with one eye closed. The myth-making had begun, cementing Anya Sharma's quiet competence into the permanent lore of the institution she served so silently. The most significant change, however, was in the Admiral. He was not seen on the ranges for weeks. The booming arrogance was gone, replaced by a quiet, contemplative demeanor. One afternoon, he found Chief Sharma not in the armory or on the range, but alone in the base library, reading a well-worn book of poetry. There were no onlookers, no aides, no audience. He stood before her, his posture no longer one of command, but of contrition. "Chief," he began, his voice barely above a whisper. "I was wrong. My comments were unprofessional, unbecoming, and ignorant. I apologize." Anya Sharma looked up from her book, her calm eyes meeting his. She saw no triumph. No, "I told you so." She saw a man who had been forced to confront the limits of his own perception. She gave him a single, brief nod. "Apology accepted, Admiral. We all have our blind spots." It was a simple, professional absolution, devoid of emotion but filled with a quiet strength that was, in its own way, more powerful than her display on the range. She had no need for his apology, but she understood that he needed to give it. Later, when a young seaman approached her, wide-eyed, asking how she had made those impossible shots, she didn't recount her war stories. She simply picked up a spent .50 caliber casing from a display case. "Focus on the fundamentals," she said, her voice soft but firm. "Breathing, trigger press, follow through. Everything else is just noise. Master the silence within, and the noise outside can't touch you." The 20th shell casing, the one from the 2,500-meter shot, was later mounted by the range masters on a simple plaque of polished walnut. It was placed in the main trophy case of the Training Command Headquarters, a silent testament among the gleaming cups and awards. The inscription was short, containing everything that needed to be said. Sharma. 287 seconds. Competence is quiet. A year passed. A new class of freshly commissioned ensigns was being given a tour of the base's advanced training facilities. They were young, ambitious, and filled with the unshakable confidence that comes with new gold bars on their collars. Their tour guide was a grizzled master gunnery sergeant from the Marine Corps, a liaison to the Naval Marksmanship Program. He led them into the headquarters building and stopped before the main trophy case. He ignored the large, ornate trophies for fleet-wide competitions and pointed a thick finger at the small, unassuming plaque with the single brass casing. "Forget all this other shiny garbage," he growled, his voice a low rumble. "Look here. This is the only lesson you need to learn today." He then told them the story. He told them about a pompous admiral who saw only a woman and a chief petty officer who saw only the mission. He spoke of the 20 targets that fell in less than 30 seconds and the deafening silence that followed. He called it the Sharma principle, the institutional imperative to never, ever mistake a lack of volume for a lack of value. The story had become a foundational piece of leadership training at the base, a cautionary tale passed down to every new officer to remind them that the person mopping the deck or quietly cleaning their rifle might be infinitely more capable than they could ever imagine. The Admiral, now stationed at the Pentagon, was known to tell the story himself, often at high-level briefings. He told it as a story against himself, a stark and humbling example of how ego can blind a commander to the most valuable weapon in his arsenal, the quiet professional. True power is never loud. It does not need to announce its arrival with bluster and brass. It is felt not in the tremor of a commanding voice, but in the deafening silence after a task has been executed with impossible perfection. It is the quiet confidence of the surgeon before a life-or-death operation, the focused calm of the pilot landing a crippled aircraft, the silent precision of the warrior whose actions speak with a finality that words can never achieve. True worth is not declared, it is demonstrated. It is proven in the crucible of performance, where assumptions are burned away and only competence remains. Legacy is not a name carved into a granite monument, celebrated with speeches and parades. It is a standard, etched into the hearts and minds of those who follow. It is a quiet expectation of excellence, a professional ethos that echoes long after the sound of the rifle has faded into memory, inspiring a new generation to understand that the most profound strength is the one that has nothing to prove to anyone but itself. It is the enduring lesson of the quiet professional. Let the world be loud. Your results will be the silence that follows, a silence that says more than words ever could. For more stories where quiet competence triumphs over loud assumption and where silent professionalism defines their worth, subscribe to Unknown Heroine Stories.